It's Baxi's Musical Podcast.
In 1985, there was literally a metric ton of unbelievably great music that was blasting through college radio stations around the country. You had The Cure, The Smiths, Susie and the Banshees, New Order, Husker Du. I could go on forever. But for me, 1985 was all about two incredible rock anthems that seemed to come out almost simultaneously. The first song was the massively successful single She Sells Sanctuary by The Cult, which is still a flat-out classic and still one of my favorite songs from that year. The other song was the title track from the 1985 album by The Alarm. The song and the album were called Strength. And in the case of The Alarm, that was an understatement. And between these two songs, this innocent, closed-minded suburbanite brain was completely unlocked. These weren't just songs to me, they were anthems. Huge, powerful pieces of music that dominated my entire sophomore year in college and well beyond. The funny thing is, Strength wasn't even The Alarm's best song. In fact, it wasn't even the highest charting single from the album. But for me, it was a classic, and I loved it. The Alarm were a band from Wales that would sign with Miles Copeland and his IRS record label. They would release 5 albums between 1984 and 1991, where they had a fistful of hits like 1983's 68 Guns, or 1985's Spirit of 76, Rain in the Summertime from 1987, and 1989's Sold Me Down the River. All totaled, The Alarm had 9 singles reach the UK Top 40 and 11 singles reaching the mainstream Top 40 here in the States. But the story behind The Alarm doesn't just stop at the music. The story behind The Alarm is an incredibly important and poignant one, especially as it relates to the health of the band's lead singer and songwriter, Mike Peters. In 1995, Mike Peters would be diagnosed with lymphatic cancer. He made a full recovery and would later play with Big Country and Joe Strummer's Mescaleros, and was even part of a supergroup called Dead Man Walking that included Glenn Matlock of the Sex Pistols and Captain Sensible from The Damned. He also reformed The Alarm in 2005, but later that year he was diagnosed with leukemia. During his recovery, Peters formed his own cancer foundation called Love, Hope, Strength. Last September, Mike Peters relapsed again with another round of cancer combined with a potentially deadly case of pneumonia. He survived it and is currently in remission. In fact, Mike was able to perform at his annual gathering shows in Wales in late January to more than 1,500 very enthusiastic fans. He's also slated to play at the Gramercy Theater in New York on June 23rd and 24th. On top of that, he and his wife, who's also a breast cancer survivor, have opened a wellness retreat for cancer survivors that's free of charge. And oh yeah, there's another Alarm album coming out in June, and it's awesome. This is an amazing story of a man who is the very definition of strength. It's taken on a completely different and more personal meaning than it did back in 1985. This is my interview with the incredible Mike Peters from The Alarm on Baxi's Musical Podcast. Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
Very, very good. Good to see you.
And you okay? Is this just audio, or do you need the film?
It's recording just audio, but to have you on video is fine too. I mean, unless you're
good. No,
desperate to shut it off.
all right. I'd go into a better place if you wanted to see me better.
No, it's great. I have to say I'm so incredibly grateful that you're here and that you're doing well. You've had yourself a hell of a year. Tell me what you've been through over the last 7 or 8 months and how you're feeling today.
I feel amazing considering where I've been. The last few months were a ride through a very dark place, very challenging place. I was, unsure whether I was going to come out of this one with alive as a base point, but also when I started to feel I could make it through the hospital period, I was worried I wouldn't be able to sing. So to have an album like Forwards recorded now I'm just so grateful to be alive and glad I could sing. And I think a lot of that energy, the release of that, is you can feel that in the songs
without question. I do want to say, and I'm not blowing smoke up your bagpipes here, but I've been on the Alarm bandwagon forever, since 1984. Got my Declaration album, and I got Strength here, and I was just looking at this the other day, and I just like, Jesus, look at the hair on you guys back then.
Yeah, it goes like this now, down instead of up.
This must have taken you guys hours to perfect.
Not really, you just have to lie upside down with a hairdryer and some Aquanet.
Yeah. Yeah, the great part about it is, back in '85, the song "Strength" was just a huge song for me, and I couldn't get enough of it. And what's ironic about it now is that in hindsight, when you look at your entire career and what you've been through in your own personal life, the song "Strength" has a profoundness that you couldn't possibly have imagined at the age of 26. But when you sing that song now, it must have a totally different meaning to you. Tell me what the song "Strength" means to you now as opposed to 38 years ago.
Yeah, well, it means a lot more to me now because it's the words "love, hope, and strength" that appeared in that song, and they're in about 5 or 6 of the songs on Strength. They're in "Walk Forever by My Side" and D side. The words are there in various songs on the album and Dawn Chorus and it's given its name to our charity, Love, Hope, Strength, and we've been able to save a lot of lives through the charity and change lives and help build cancer centers around the world. But for me personally, when I first wrote the lines, "Who will be the lifeblood coursing through my veins," the opening line, I didn't know what it really meant. It was an instinctive lyric that just came out. And I thought, that was the first line when I started writing the song, and I've got to keep that. And I think my mum always said to me that when I was diagnosed with leukemia, my mum thought it was always in me from when I was a child, and I would come off school to have swollen glands and things like that. So I don't know where probably it's always been a part of my subconscious all through my life, and is there in the songwriting without me really knowing it in the beginning. So when I heard the word cancer applied to my life for the very first time, it was in 1995, and I was in hospital having a blood test, and the doctor called me in and he handed a leaflet across the desk and said, "Let's talk about cancer." And it was the first time I'd seen that word applied to myself. And I was actually on the way to a gig, and my brother was waiting outside in the car. And the doctor said, come back tomorrow and let's talk about cancer when you've had a chance to digest it. And the brother was in shock, and my wife Jules, and it was like, "Let's go home." And I was like, I can't just go home and sit there do nothing until I see the doctor. Let's go and do the gig. And when I went on stage, I actually played Strength that night, and the lyrics hit me like a train. And I thought, this is why I've written this song. This is I'm singing "Give Me Love, Hope, and Strength" because I really did need it, but not maybe then, but in the future, I was going to come to rely on it big time.
It's incredible to look back at the lyrics now and how they resonate. I mean, not just, I mean, obviously in your life, but I mean everybody is touched by cancer in some form or another. And what you've been able to do with that diagnosis on a different level. Love, Hope, and Strength Foundation is remarkable. How you've been able to advocate for the care of people and their well-being amidst treatment. Tell me about that foundation and how it started and where it is today.
Yeah, well, it started in hospital while I was having chemotherapy, and I could look out the window and see the highest mountain in Wales, Mount Snowdon, in the distance. And I thought, "Well, imagine if I could get to the top of that again, I know I'm doing well." So I thought, that's my goal. I'm going to take as many alarm fans as I can. We'll climb the mountain, and we'll give the funds we raised to the nurses who were looking after me. I thought there was, some amazing foundations out there that do great work for research and that kind of thing. But at the time, I didn't think there was too many on the ground charities helping nurses and finding books for children to educate themselves with while they were on the cancer wards. Just simple things, pillows for people while they were sat in their chairs and to try and help them stay comfy. Little comforts that are big when it comes to helping you through that journey of having chemotherapy. And so when we went to Mount Snowdon, it was very successful. And I met a guy from Texas, James Chippendale, and he said, "This is a great idea, Mike. Why stop at Snowdon? Let's go to Mount Everest." and we did. And we went there, and we carried the same principle through. We thought, okay, if we're climbing Mount Everest, we'll raise money for the country of Nepal. We'll help their cancer struggle rather than ship it back to America and the UK. So all the funds we raised on our Everest Rock stayed and helped build a cancer centre in Bhaktapur in Kathmandu. And that's what we've done in Africa, in Peru, and in the United States and in the UK. Whenever we've trekked in places, we leave the money behind.
I saw the video of the Mount Everest, effort.
Everest Rocks, yeah.
Yeah, and it's I mean, everybody came out to support you in that. And like I said, everybody's been touched by cancer, but I mean, it just to watch it had to be an incredible experience to have all that help and all that support from people you knew.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, right, just 20 minutes ago before this interview, I've got Slim Jim Phantom from the Stray Cats staying with us. And I was with him 20 minutes ago, and we were talking about Everest and, answering that call. And one of the amazing things, we had Slim Jim, we had Glenn Tilbrook from Squeeze.
Yeah.
And everyone was struggling with communication. We all had like satellite phones. And Slim Jim, he was like the Fonz on the mountain. He just turned up in silver mountain boots. He walked his dog in the Hollywood Hills. He could smoke. He could get a signal on his phone whenever he wanted. It was incredible. And he made it all the way to the top, and we did a concert in 2007. We did the highest gig in the world. And, it was an amazing adventure. And we would put our cancer diagnosis and, even then on, Glenn Tilbrook, his reasoning for doing it was that he'd lost a girlfriend when he was young to leukemia, something that nobody knew about. And it always affected him. And he wanted to sort of do something to help put back into to help that battle against cancer. And so he was armed with his own fight to carry him up the mountain. And that's what it did. It brought the best out in everybody who was there.
One of the things that I really appreciate that your foundation has done is the Get on the List campaign for marrow donations. I had an uncle that I was very close to who also died of leukemia. He had 17 years of remission that he was able to enjoy until it finally came back and took him. But marrow donation is one of the things that helped him along, and that was a long time ago. The technology and advances in marrow donation are remarkable, and the fact that you've been able to get 1,500 positive matches, probably more since then, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, we're over 4,500 matches now, and we say potentially because we don't know the outcome of everyone, because some people want it to be anonymous, and we don't get to know what's happened. But that's how many people have stepped forward from a list of over 2.5, 250,000 people are on the registry because of Love, Hope, Strength, and all the bands that have allowed us to have booths in their gigs. The pandemic came and stopped it for a while, but we're just starting to engage the platform because obviously it involved a saliva donation to get on the list. So that wasn't cool for a little while the pandemic was going on. But we're back out there now, and we're just re-engaging the campaign, and we're hoping to get more people to step forward and save lives. And people can sign up. They can visit our website at lovehopestrength.org or .co.uk, and they can register to the list digitally there through. We'll send them a kit in the post. They can sign up and hopefully save a life.
I also read about you converting this chapel in your hometown in Wales as a retreat for people who are ongoing treatment. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's not a permanent retreat, but some weekends we allow. We're bringing cancer people and their families to kind of get away from the hospital and the hard regime of having to take cancer treatments and chemotherapies or radiation therapies. And just to let them to step out of it for a little bit. The chapel is right opposite the waterfalls, 70-foot waterfall where we live. You can see it from the windows. It's very calming. It's been the chapel was the Alarms recording studio for many, many years, from 2003. And then in the lockdown, we converted it into some apartments, and we thought we can still put them to good use and affect people's lives. And my recording studio got turned into a yoga studio, so I got kicked out. And now we've got another place down the road, which is really good. And so everyone wins, I think, in the end.
One of the things that I have read is, it's not only you that has been dealing with cancer. Your wife has had a battle of breast cancer on her own. How is she doing?
Oh, she's fantastic. Yeah, she's a few years cancer free now. but the scars are always there, you know, especially for women going through breast cancer who have to have surgery. It can be quite disfiguring, and you know that can be just as hard to come to terms with as the cancer itself. Jules is lucky, you know, she survived. We've lost lots of friends and loved ones around us, you know, fans, supporters of Love Hope Strength who've followed Jules's lead but haven't been so lucky, and we've lost them along the way. But you know, I like to think with Love Hope Strength, with the fortitude people get from Love Hope Strength, sometimes that positivity can give them one more day, one more kiss with their loved one, and that could be the world to some people, you know, and that's, you know, that's why that's something I never take for granted. You know, every breath you take, as Sting once said, you know, it's as important. It's vital. You know, and we should be grateful for every chance we have to breathe the air and see the morning and watch the sun come up.
This last round that you went through in September and October, I mean, you not only had, you know, the cancer had come back, but you were also suffering from pneumonia. To be able to go through that and then in January perform at the Gathering, I mean, that just had to. I mean, I saw the videos of it, and it's incredible. It's so inspiring to watch you perform with that much enthusiasm after what you had been through. Tell me what that felt like to get back on stage, considering the year that you and your wife had just had.
It was everything, because it was what I dreamt of in hospital. It's what I kept focused on, it because it was there. It was, yeah, it's an auspicious event because it's there every January, and it absolutely it was a joyous occasion.
You're coming to the States in June after the album is released. We'll talk about the album here in a second, but you're coming to the Gramercy Theater in New York City. How long has it been since you've been in the U.S.? I would imagine the lockdown and the pandemic certainly disrupted a lot of that for you.
Yeah, I think I managed to get out there in 2022 in January, and I was able to play at an acoustic set at the Gramercy, Washington, LA. They were acoustic gathering events that had been delayed, so I was able to do them and then get back to Britain to do the 40th anniversary tour. And it was during that time that I started to get the complications that led to pneumonia and the leukemia relapse. I think it was probably because of the pandemic, and all my treatment and medication and doctor visits had been over the phone. I didn't see anybody. So the stats don't tell you everything about cancer. You got to see the person. And then when I did get seen by the doctors, it didn't add up. So it was, I was in a bad way, to be honest. But yeah, it was great to play acoustic. So I can't wait to get back to America in June, and then hopefully add some more dates as things develop over the year.
I do want to ask you a couple questions about the new album. I've heard a couple of tracks off of it already. The title track, Forwards, comes out on June 2nd, but it's an amazing song and another inspirational effort from you. Tell me about the new album and what it means to you.
Well, I wrote it in hospital, most of it, and it was, you know, the doctors and nurses got to hear the songs before they were even realized, and they keep coming back in. I thought these must be good songs, because the nurses keep coming back to hear a bit more, and that kept, you know, that I only brought the guitar into the hospital to keep me company, really, and then next minute songs started to be born, but I couldn't sing them properly. I could whisper them. I'd lost my voice, and I wasn't quite sure I'd be able to make the record completely. When I got out of hospital, I said to George Williams, the producer, you might have to consider this like a posthumous record, you know, because I was able to record one take of vocals in the demo studio when I was outlining the songs, but then my voice went completely, and I wasn't sure it was ever going to come back, because I was still getting used to this chemotherapy drug that I take every day. And luckily, as the days went by, but when we started recording the drums and the backing tracks, I was communicating via a whisper, and so when I got to sing it and my voice came back, it was like, oh my goodness! It means a lot to me to have climbed back to get this record.
You haven't skipped a beat as far as the final product of it. It's such a great song. But I also saw the video for the song Next, which you filmed walking around the hospital that you were staying in. That's a great video, and again, another profound message in that song. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I think I was. It says, "Are you ready for what's next?" But I was really singing it to myself, I think, more than anything. And it was just like I wanted to capture something that sort of grabbed hold of the spirit of what it's like to be released from the bonds of being in hospital and the bonds of the disease that's got hold of you, and actually go home to the family and walk the real streets. So I often see people when they're released from hospital, no matter how incapacitated they are or how wheelchair bound, there's some spring in their step when they leave. And I wanted the song and the video to capture that moment. So I just filmed it walking down that corridor when it was at night. I had to sneak in there and do it.
But as a fan, the thing I appreciated, and it's so much like all of your music, is that those songs really do mean something. And there's always a message behind your songs. From as far back as the early 80s, you can very much tell that, there's a lot of thought into, lyrically what these songs mean. And that's one of the reasons why I love Strength so much. Even today, these new songs follow that same, I don't want to call it a formula, but it follows that same path. There's a significant meaning behind what you're singing about. It's not just a great melodic song. It's more than that.
Yeah, well, that music's everything to me, and I hope that comes out in the music. I don't think I'd write the music if significant things didn't happen in life in a weird way. I sort of one of those guys that makes a lot. I don't sit still. I try and make a lot of things happen, and if there's obstacles in the way, I sing about on the new album, there's a song called "There's Always Another Way," and I've always looked for that. When the doors were closing in on the Alarm, or the band were having problems, I tried to find the way around them. I like to think I'm a solutions guy rather than a problem guy, and I'm always looking for the something that can bring things together. Ironically, the Alarm we've been making records now for 40 years, and in the name of the Alarm, and lots of different mechanics involved in getting those records out there. And one of them is I've never been on a major record label in my life. Our record's been distributed by major institutions, but the labels, it's always been independent. And since probably 1992, I've always made my own records, and I've never had to go cap in hand to an A&R man with a load of demos and asking, can I make a record? And I think so. A lot of the frustration that a lot of artists in that major league, major record label, conglomerate type of atmosphere, is frustrating. Well, I haven't had that frustration, so I can go and make big records, small records. I can make side projects. I can communicate them for what they are, and I can diversify and live the life I want to lead, and that stood me in good stead. I've learned how to survive, and long may it continue.
Well, I mean, that's a very enviable position to be in. I mean, it's certainly not that way for a lot of your contemporaries who are kind of controlled by a corporate entity. That's not been the case for you guys.
Absolutely. We had our struggles in the 80s with the Alarm and record labels and people looking for successful records. They're trying to bend you to make a record that sounds good on the radio and all that kind of stuff. And that's that's a great challenge to have, but it's not everything. And sometimes maybe in the 80s we got caught up in trying to make the records work for the radio instead of work for ourselves and our audience. And when we made Soul Me Down the River in 1989, as big a record as that was, it sort of distanced the band from its alternative roots, really, made us sound a lot more mainstream. Whereas I think we were much more independent and groundbreaking than that record sounded, and so I think I've been able to reclaim a lot of that sort of identity for the Alarm over the years that have passed.
You mentioned Slim Jim Phantom a little while ago, and I know you were in something called Dead Men Walking. Glenn Matlock was in that, Captain Sensible, and what happened to that? Because it sounded like it was either going to be a hell of a lot of trouble or something really great, or somewhere in between.
To be honest, it's still there was lots of people in the Dead Men Walking. It was like you say, Glenn Matlock, Mick Jones from the Clash came along for a few shows. We had Billy Duffy from the Cult. We had, like you say, Captain Sensible. We even had Tom Head. I think we almost had every member of the Clash on stages apart from Joe Strummer, at one point or other, and lots of other people too. It was amazing. But there's a real connection between myself, Slim Jim, our own original material, and we created a breakaway outfit called the Jack Tars, which we've been pursuing when we can. But the pandemic, we did one song called Rock and Roll Kills for our Big Night In TV show, and which was fantastic. And that was with a guy called Chris Cheney from an Australian band called The Living End.
On paper, it sounds fantastic.
It was brilliant, and it will ride again. The Jack Tars will sail again.
Oh, good. I also wanted to ask you about something that I was reading about your brief period of time in Big Country. Stuart Adamson died in 2001, and I think you were with them about like 8 or 9 years later. Tell me about the importance of Big Country for The Alarm, because I know there's a significant connection between those two bands.
Yeah, well, we first played together in 1983. Stuart and I met Stuart Adamson on stage with U2 at the Hammersmith Palais. It was the last night of the War Tour in Britain. Yeah, so Bono invited Stuart and I on stage, and I came on from the stage right, but Stuart Adamson was watching the gig, so he had to be handed over the audience, and I helped him over the barrier, and that's the first time I touched his hand was when I met him. And we became really good friends, and we played some dates together in the 80s. And then 2000 and 2001, The Alarm was beginning again with myself and Eddie McDonald. And it wasn't the original lineup. We were probably pushing our 30s and 40s. And Stuart Adamson said, "Yeah, no, come on tour with Big Country. It'd be great." And we did it. And so the last Big Country tour, we did it as The Alarm. I sang on Stuart's last ever gig. I sang on his last ever song, Big Country. We did Rockin' in the Free World, and it was amazing. And,
wow.
And Stuart was saying, "I'm going to go and live in Nashville. You should be the singer of Big Country, Mike. Take over." I said, "Stuart, that's weird. I'm not going to do that." But then in 2011, there was an anniversary for Big Country, and they asked me if I'd sing a couple of songs at this anniversary award show, and I said, "Of course." And then I never heard anything. And then about 3 weeks later, Bruce Watson, the guitarist from me, said, "Hey, Mike." I said, "What's going on? How come did that gig not happen?" He said, "No, it didn't happen, but you were so enthusiastic that we've booked a whole tour. So we're going to start on New Year's Eve in Scotland." And it's like, what? So my debut concert singing for Big Country was in Glasgow on New Year's Eve, which is a very auspicious occasion.
Yeah.
And it was weird because when I was doing my research for the gig, I went and watched that last gig that we played together with Stuart. And so I was watching the gig and watching Stuart and just thinking how he approached his gig, thinking of it as, right, I'm going to step into his shoes now. And something was like catching my eye and I couldn't work out what it was. And then there was a zoom in close up on him. And in his last ever Big Country gig, he was wearing a Mike Peters t-shirt with a Mike Peters logo right there in the center of his chest. I thought, this is getting weirder by the minute. But it was a great experience. I was really glad I was able to sing for Big Country, help him reconnect with his music, because the tragedy of his passing left a big shadow over the music. And I don't think people could take the records out of the sleeves without thinking about that. And it was maybe taking away something. And Stuart was much more than that one crazy day. And I think, playing, it meant Big Country fans could go to a gig again. They could sing "Stay Alive," live in the moment again. And it was fantastic. And I really helped, I was really proud of helping them get on with it. And they want me to keep going and going. I said, "Look, guys, I'm in The Alarm. You got to find someone else." And we did a gig a couple of years ago, just before the pandemic, and it was fantastic. Yeah. So I'm sure we'll do some more again in the future because we got a good close-knit bond between us.
I know you've probably heard this before, and probably because it's true. I mean, it's not always easy to embrace things like joy and optimism and gratitude during tough times in your life, and it doesn't come naturally to some people. But it seems like something that drives you in a very honest and selfless way, and then to watch you persevere with grace and tenacity really is inspiring to a lot of people. And I think when fans get a chance to hear the new Alarm album, they're going to be blown away by it because it's really powerful. And I appreciate the fact that you did it. I appreciate the fact that it's out.
Oh, that's great. No, because it was a tough challenge, but I didn't want it to be a record it wasn't about where I'd been. I wanted to make this a record about where I was going. I knew I was going to get back to life, and I wanted that feeling to come across in the record and the songs. And, I could have written a very different record a few weeks earlier when I thought there's maybe not a way out of this. But then once I realized that there was an opportunity for me to get on a new drug regime that had only just come out. I like it. My life in cancer has been like one massive Donkey Kong game. You get to the end of a plank and you think, oh no, I'm going down. And then, oh, just make it to the next level and keep going. So, because I've been living with the cancer now since 1995. And I've been the beneficiary of amazing advances in science. And, and I've got plenty of people that I've had treatment with who were never so lucky. They didn't make it to that following week. And if they'd hung on one more week, they might have got to the treatments I got to, So I was very lucky. And there was one drug I was able to sustain on for 8 years when most people can tolerate it for 2. Yeah. So somebody's smiling down on me from somewhere. So I've got to be grateful for all that.
Well, I'm looking forward to you adding some new dates to the U.S. and very much looking forward to the album coming out. Mike, it's a real pleasure to talk to you. And
Mike, thank you.
Thank you for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, Mike. Best of luck.
Brilliant.
Take care.
Take care. See you again.
The name of the new album from The Alarm is Forward, and it's scheduled to be out on June 2nd. And to find out more about his foundation, you can go to lovehopestrength.org. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. You can reach me at bax@rock102.com. I'd love to hear what you think. And thanks again for listening to Baxy's Musical Podcast.